If you're thinking about leaving the US and moving abroad, there's a good chance that Albania and or Ecuador are on your list of places to research. We lived in Ecuador for 6 years. We spent another 2.5 months there last year. Last fall. We have spent over 6 months in Albania over the last couple of years. It's one of our favorite countries now. So in this video, we're going to look at the 11 livability factors that are most important to you if you're considering a place to live abroad. And we're going to compare Albania to Ecuador.
But before we get started, if you're new to our channel, we're Amelia and JP, and we can help you fast track your move abroad, whether you want to expat in one country or just slow travel for a while.
All right, so let's dive in, Amelia.
Okay.
We're going to start with cost of living. This is usually at the top of everyone's list, except for maybe visas, which we are going to cover at the end of this video.
Yes.
So the cost of living in Ecuador is lower. You can spend a single, and we're going to talk in terms of single cost of living, usually at like 50% if you're a couple, because housing is the most expensive part, and you don't have double that if you're a couple.
That is very true.
So about 50% more. So in Ecuador, you can live pretty comfortably on $1,100 a month as a single. You obviously spend more, live in nicer places, but that is kind of a good average to go by.
Yes, when we first moved to Ecuador, we were living on $1,500 a month, and the prices have not changed that much.
Yeah, they really haven't. In fact, we heard from our landlord where we lived in Cuenca just a few months ago, and he said that the rental was available, and it was the exact same price that we paid when we lived there in 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Yes, if you want a newer condo building in part of the newer parts of Cuenca, then you're going to pay more. But just like you were saying, JP, that there's other options available, so you definitely can live there on a budget.
Yeah, so the next thing is the produce, the fresh food. It's really affordable in Ecuador.
It is affordable and plentiful. Boy, I just miss it all the time. I just miss the incredible quality of the food. Especially if you shop at the Mercados, you can save a lot of money that way. If you're going to the traditional grocery stores, they're more expensive, but still not compared to the U.S. unless you're going for the imported products.
Yeah, if you try to eat more locally, then it's really extremely affordable.
It is.
Shockingly, eating out is pretty affordable too.
It is.
So the utilities are another big savings because if you live in the mountains, they don't have heat or air conditioning. So you don't have all of those expensive utility bills.
Well, and we never had heat when we lived there. We lived on the coast. We did have air conditioning, but do you remember how much we were paying? Was it $80 a month?
It was $80 a month during the hot months. It was more like $40 a month in the cooler months.
Yeah, so not bad at all, especially if you're coming from a place like Phoenix, where I remember my parents back in 2012 paying $400 a month in the summer months. Oh, that is a big utility bill.
That's brutal.
Yes.
The other savings is healthcare. Is really affordable, and prescriptions in Ecuador, very affordable. Now let's talk about Albania. It's a little bit more expensive. Countrywide, the average is around $1,250 per month for a single. You can live on less than that. If you want to stay in Tirana, that's more. Some of the other smaller cities are going to cost you less.
Absolutely.
So I looked up online and compared Tirana to Cuenca, which are the two cities that we kind of recommend starting in if you're going to move there. And Tirana is about 32% more expensive than Cuenca, and almost all of that is housing.
I would agree with that. The housing prices have gone up. We noticed it from the Airbnb perspective. The short-term housing prices were more expensive. I thought eating out was more expensive too, but I mean, they're on the LEC, but it's tied to the euro there, whereas Ecuador is on the dollar. So there is that to factor in as well.
Yeah, the LEC is pegged to the euro at 100 to 1, and with the exchange rate, the euro against the dollar is not good right now for us, so that made things quite a bit more expensive.
Right.
Basically, it's from when we were there 2 years ago, it's like 18% more expensive.
Right. So we did notice it, but still, that being said, it was still extremely affordable. Going out to eat was, what, $40? It's very affordable.
Yeah.
Groceries are affordable. You can get nice, high-quality produce. You can shop at the little mom-and-pop mercados, too. That's not what they're called there. I can't say it in Albanian, sorry.
So the utilities can spike in the winter, although the winters are more mild than people expect. We've had a lot of questions from people saying, I don't know if I could handle the winters there. The winters are not the issue. We're going to talk more about weather later. It's the summers that are the issue, and your utility bills can really spike because it gets very hot.
It sure does.
So
definitely hotter. Sorry, definitely a lot hotter than Ecuador on the coast.
Yeah, definitely. It never gets that hot. We're going to talk more about
Yes.
weather later. All right, so our perspective on the cost of living is that Ecuador feels cheap and practical, and I know people get on us for saying cheap, for using that word, but it is compared to the U.S. If you're coming from the
Right.
U.S., you're going to think it's very cheap, very affordable. If you are in Ecuador living on an Ecuadorian minimum wage salary, I'm sure it does not feel that way, but that's not who's watching this video right now.
That's true.
All right, Albania, I would say, feels like affordable Europe.
Agreed. It is one of the most affordable places we've been to, the other place being Athens.
Mm-hmm.
But Athens is not as easy, or Greece is not as easy to move to as Albania, and we'll talk about that later too.
Yes. Okay, so the next factor, livability factor, is how tax-friendly the country is, and I'm going to say that they're pretty equivalent.
I would agree with that.
I mean, every year during tax time, somebody comes out and says expats owe taxes in Ecuador. Our accountant says we don't. Other accountants say you do. If you pay Ecuador, they are not going to turn that money down, but they have not come after us for our global income.
No, they don't do that. If you earn money inside of Ecuador, meaning you have a traditional job or you're providing services in Ecuador, you are required to pay taxes on that. They do not charge or tax your Social Security. At least that's what we have been told.
Yeah. By our accountant.
By our
But
accountant.
if you ask another accountant, if you ask 10 accountants, half are going to say you owe, and the other half probably not. And generally it's split by who their primary audience is. If they help mostly expats, they're going to tell you you owe taxes. If they help mostly Ecuadorians, they're going to say you don't owe taxes.
Yeah, we didn't have any way to, well, we don't collect Social Security, but even if we did, there's a whole portal you can go into and pay your taxes, and that wasn't even an option.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that neither country feels oppressive when it comes to taxes.
No.
So it's not really a factor that would differentiate the two.
Agreed.
All right, next one is level of development. I think you guys are going to be surprised by this one because I think Ecuador is the clear winner when it comes to level of development.
I agree with you 100%. In Cuenca and other parts of the country, you can drink the tap water, which in my book is a huge win. In Albania, unfortunately, you cannot. They have really dependable internet there.
Yeah,
high fast.
in Ecuador,
or
we
high fast.
High fast. Okay, Amelia, I know you're excited.
I am excited.
Take a breath. They have fast internet. We had, what, half a gig?
Yeah.
And it was $20 some a month.
It was
or wasn't
so
it? It was like
affordable.
maybe $35 a month for a half a gig. 500 meg. Up and down, not just down.
Well, and it's fiber too.
Yeah, we had fiber to our router in our house in Cuenca, Olón, Manta, and in Cumbaya.
Extremely reliable internet. They have that tram in Cuenca now. They have the metro in Quito.
They have a gondola system in Guayaquil.
Yeah.
So they have much better public transportation, which we're also going to talk about a little bit
Yes.
later. But Amelia already mentioned that the water is drinkable in several of the cities, including Cuenca. And where we lived in Cumbaya, you could drink it. People say you can drink it in Loja as well.
Yes.
And other areas. Shopping malls and healthcare are great in Ecuador.
Yes.
The grocery store. I mean, we went to that grocery store in Tirana, in the Tag Mall. Remember that? It was huge.
It was huge.
But it cost 10 euros each way. The taxis kind of have a agreement, and it costs 10 euros. It doesn't matter what part of the city you're going from or to. And so it's like an extra 20 euros, which is like $25 just in transportation to get there. So we end up going to the small Spars and All Market and Conads that are in the city, which are kind of small. They're little neighborhood grocery stores. They're not very well stocked.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like if you want to go to the big grocery store and you want to save money, you have to take the bus. There really isn't another good option because it's not walkable unless you're all the way out there already, which you're probably not going to want to live outside of that part of the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ecuador also has a better highway system.
Yes.
We should have talked about this earlier, but they have a lot of really nice 4-lane highways and interchanges, and it's easier to get around, especially inside the city. Sometimes between the cities, it's not as nice, but like in Quito, there's really nice highways around Quito. In Tirana, they just finished a brand new kind of beltway around most of the way around Tirana. It doesn't go all the way yet. I'm guessing it probably will. It's super nice, and it's like a normal beltway in the U.S., but that's pretty new, and that's pretty limited, that most of the highways are just 2 lanes. it can take forever to drive anywhere.
Yeah, it's a slow go if you want to drive anywhere between cities. Even getting from when we went from Tirana to Skodra,
Yeah.
it took like 2 hours. It's not that far away. It's a hike because from time perspective, because of all the traffic too, because they're doing a lot of construction. The country is behind because of their intense communist regime. So they are working really hard to get this up to today's standards, but it's a process and it's going to take time, and so you're definitely going to feel some infrastructure woes compared to Ecuador.
Yeah, so one of the downsides with Ecuador is their reliance on hydro for their electricity.
Yes.
They had a massive drought in 2023, into 2023, and they had no electricity. They were on rolling blackouts countrywide for like 2 or 3 months. It was not ideal. The power in Tirana is not that much better. We had several power outages in the time that we were there. One time we were staying in an Airbnb and the power was out for an entire day, and we were walking and there was a power line that literally underneath the bricks on the sidewalk that had got water in it and exploded, and it blew out the sidewalk. You could see the power line that big just laid on the ground underneath the bricks on the sidewalk.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was interesting.
So then in order to fix it because our whole block was out, including all the businesses, so in order to fix it, they ran another cable this big across the street, and they had it propped up on poles and over the wall, and they connected it into the transformer. It was in no way OSHA certified.
No, but you can't say that about Ecuador either.
No, you can't.
Unfortunately, that's the norm in so many other countries around the world. The other thing I'll say about Ecuador compared to Albania is that they have more airports.
Yes. Yeah, Ecuador has 4 now international airports because Manta's flying to Panama.
Yes.
So Guayaquil, Quito, no, 3. Guayaquil, Quito, and Manta are international. Cuenca is not international. You have to go through Quito to get there, and sometimes there's a flight from Guayaquil, but it's actually just easier to drive that.
They're supposed to be building an airport in Vlora, but who knows if that will actually get finished. There's a lot of political stuff involved with that. At least that's what we were told.
And environmental.
Yes.
So the other thing I'm really shocked by about Albania is that you can't drink the tap water, even in Tirana. They have the water, you buy the jugs of water in the grocery store. We see the locals buying it. It's just, some of the locals said that they drink it, but we were told not to.
Yeah, I'm sure if you're born and raised there, you're
it's probably fine.
But as tourists, we did not want to take that chance.
Yeah, I think overall, though, Albania feels more like developing Europe. It's definitely a developing country. It's developing quickly, but I would say Ecuador is a good 10 years ahead of it.
Oh, most definitely. There's some roads in Ecuador that gets washed out by landslides, but that's not really an infrastructure issue. Well, I guess it kind of is.
Mm-hmm. It is, but that's just a Mother Nature issue.
Yes.
That could happen in Albania if they had roads on the side of the mountain when floods like they do in the tropics. But
that's true.
All right, the next livability factor is healthcare. This is one that's also at the top of a lot of people's list. Again, I'm going to say Ecuador wins on this one because it has such affordable, accessible healthcare. We have our WhatsApp numbers for our doctors. We have private insurance in Ecuador, although price has doubled since we first got it in 2018. It was $180 for both of us then. It's $360 for both of us now, and it largely is because of the pandemic.
Yes, it went up quite a bit after that. Which I still have to question if we really want that, but we keep keeping it.
Well, it covers us.
Keep it on.
It covers us for travel emergencies.
I know, and that is an important factor.
Yeah, so otherwise we wouldn't have a travel emergency health care.
And we have had to use that a couple times.
Yeah, so it's extremely affordable. Most expats in Ecuador are on a private system. Some have both. Some do private and public. A few do just the public. Mm-hmm. But you get better, faster appointments, maybe more qualified doctors with the private system.
Well, and more English-speaking doctors as well.
That too. All right, so Albania. Emergency room visits are free in Albania for everyone, even tourists.
Yeah, that is a nice plus.
Yeah, it is. So the healthcare is improving, but it's inconsistent. We were told by some of our local friends that if you really want to have good care for regular medical stuff, a lot of them go to Italy or Greece or Germany for that to get, I don't know, higher quality, I guess, or maybe quicker quicker appointments.
I think it's more, it depends on the procedures you want. So they've got the basics covered. But if you have a specific medical condition that is, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say exotic, but just a little bit above the norm, you may need, where you really need a specialist, then you may have to go to another country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would say overall, though, the healthcare in Ecuador is much better. So it's more affordable, higher quality, more English-speaking doctors.
I feel like the dental is very equivalent in both countries, however.
Yeah.
Albania has a lot of dental tourism, as Ecuador does as well. And
plastic surgery.
Yes, they do.
It's the I think Albania is the rhinoplasty capital of the world, because you walk down the street.
Transplant.
You walk down the street and there's people with the nose patches like all the time.
Yes, it's very common.
Yeah. So, all right, by the way, if you're seriously considering moving abroad to countries like Albania or Ecuador, we created a free Move Abroad toolkit that you can download from our website. Just go to ameliaandjp.com/toolkit. It also has a visa matrix and a checklist and a couple other things that come with the toolkit that will help you on your move abroad. All right, you ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
Safety and stability.
This is also extremely important.
Yeah, and this is a clear winner too. I mean, given everything that's been going on in Ecuador over the past few years, really since the pandemic, but it's made international news for safety issues with the gangs and stuff. So, I mean, you definitely can see where we're going with this.
Yes.
What's funny, though, is that other Europeans have this, I would say, outdated perception that Albania is dangerous, and it's just not.
They do. They think it's overrun with mafiosos everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
It's just not the case. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. It's not like they're out walking around the street
with a sign saying, "I'm in the mafia."
I know. I mean, everybody dresses like Jersey Shore there. So that's the style with this tracksuits and everything. So, I mean, I guess maybe that's where the stereotype comes from.
Well, Albania has a mafia. It's not a secret, but they're not running rampant through the streets there.
Yeah, it's not. They don't have the vacunas like they do in Latin America.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I don't know. So it's the safety. So here's an example. We were riding in from the airport in the taxi, and our driver was talking to us, fluent English, by the way. And he told us that, you're a single woman, totally safe, walking home by herself at night at 2 a.m. in the morning in Tirana, in the capital. And the smaller cities are probably even safer.
Oh, absolutely.
But he said then she could get on the bus and get her pockets picked. So you got to be really careful on the buses about pickpocketing.
Well, which is the same in Ecuador and really everywhere. Any type of crowded place, you have to watch out for that. But I felt very safe. I do feel very safe walking around Albania. I have never felt unsafe there. I can't say I ever felt unsafe in Ecuador either, but we knew where to go and where not to go. So we just didn't put ourselves in areas where we would potentially be a target.
The next factor is walkability and public transportation.
We kind of covered this. Well, we didn't talk about walkability.
But the public transport kind of goes hand in hand. Like, how easy is it to get from one place to another? And I would say that this is a tie.
I would agree with that.
Both countries, I feel like, are very walkable when you're in the cities. I mean, not really between the cities, but who's going to walk from one city to another?
Well, I feel like the sidewalks overall in Albania are just better.
Yeah.
For one thing, they're wider and they are constantly repairing them, unlike Ecuador, which likes to have its sidewalk hazards, or what I like to call the disappearing sidewalks, where it just goes into nothing.
Yeah, or just they cut off a sign and leave that much sticking up, and so you don't even see it, you trip over it.
Or there's a hole.
Or manhole cover missing, or the manhole cover has like a little handle sticking out, like a little thin piece of metal, and you catch your foot in it.
Yep.
I mean, the walkability in Ecuador is pretty good if you're in the city, inside, but it's not as good as Albania. However, the public transportation in Ecuador is much better. Like there's Uber in several cities. Albania does not have Uber. They have an app called Potoko, right? Potoko?
I think so. In
Tirana, which works like Uber. It's just for the taxis though, right?
Yes.
And it
works well.
It works well. It's not as good as Uber, but
no.
or Grab or any of the others, but
they just call the taxi. The taxis, you can WhatsApp them, which is nice, but they don't all speak English, so that's why it's easier to use one of those apps where you can put in your destination and have your credit card number in there and just take care of all of it. But also, I think the public bus system in Ecuador is superb because, we used to take the bus between cities.
Yeah. They were
have the
really nice.
interprovincial buses, and they are really nice.
Yeah. So I would say, though, that Ecuador clearly wins on the public transportation.
Yes, I
So,
would agree with that.
yeah, I mean, there's no rail system in Albania, no tram, no metro, no rail network. It doesn't connect up to Eurail. A lot of people ask, how do I get there by train? Well, you go to Montenegro and walk the rest of the way because there is no train in Albania.
No, and it's really unfortunate because they have the rails there. We were told a couple years ago that they were going to get that revamped, and they're just not working on it.
No, they're not. We asked our cab driver about that, and he said, oh, it'll probably never happen. My guess is it'll happen maybe in 10 years or so.
Yes, they've got a lot going on.
Yeah. All right. So I would say Ecuador wins when it comes to transportation. Albania wins slightly when it comes to walkability. So I'm going to give this one a tie. Because none of them compared to like France or Spain.
Oh, gosh, no. Not even close. Not even close.
All right. The next factor on livability is the weather. And this also really, a lot of people ask about the weather, and especially with Albania. And like I said earlier, I get these comments. I don't know if I could handle the winters. The winters aren't bad. We were walking around in January, sometimes with a short sleeve shirt on or a jacket, and really, it wasn't bad.
No, not at all. Plus, you can go to the coast if you want to warm up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the summers are brutal though in Albania.
Yes.
We were there in July and August a year and a half ago. It was over 100 for like 2 weeks in a row. Some days it was 105 degrees.
It was painful. And the downside as well is that it doesn't cool down a lot in the evenings. It's better if you're on the coast because you've got the sea breezes there. But in Tirana and Skoder, it was a little bit cooler up there. But it was still quite warm when we would go out in the evening to go for walks. And everybody you don't see anybody during the day during those times. Everybody's just laying low, and then they all get out and go to the park at night.
Yeah. In Ecuador, you have the eternal spring in the mountains. It's in the 70s pretty much year round if you're at elevation. Even on the coast, it's usually in the 80s as a high. Rarely does it get into the 90s. Usually just a couple months out of the year, you'll have a few days in the 90s, but nothing over 100. It was never over 100 the whole time we were there.
Now, one of the downsides about the weather, though, in Ecuador is that it gets cloudy a lot. Mm-hmm. And there were often times when we were pretty miserable in Olón and in Cuenca because the sun was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
We were not feeling it. We were not getting our vitamin D.
Yeah, and the humidity can be bad on the coast.
Right.
At the elevation, it's not bad at all.
No.
I mean, you're at elevation. There's just not a lot of moisture in the air.
But at elevation, the UV is really high, so you have to be very careful. We're always reminding people to wear sunscreen or use sun protection, and people are forgetting, they'd just be beet red.
Yeah, it's really intense there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that this one, Ecuador clearly wins the comparison on weather because it is, especially in the mountains, it's just so nice, and the coast is not as hot. Ecuador doesn't have cold winters. It doesn't have extremely hot summers.
Well, if you don't need heat or air conditioning, to me, that's a big win.
Yeah.
Unless you really like having 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Another livability factor related to Mother Nature is earthquakes and volcanoes. And we have a lot of people who are afraid of both of those.
Yes.
Now, we lived in Ecuador for 6 years. We experienced a lot of earthquakes while we were there, and they were a bit scary. Definitely, but it's not like they happen all the time, and we didn't get injured by them.
No, but boy, our condo was, that building was swaying.
Ecuador's on the Ring of Fire. It's a major earthquake zone. They have several active volcanoes. The new infrastructure is supposedly built to withstand that stuff, and our high-rise condo weathered a bunch of them.
It did.
Pretty well, although it was scary to be in the high-rise and have it going like that. And also with that, you get all that delicious produce, though, because the indigenous people grow most of the fruits and veggies on those rich volcanic soil slopes, which are really not farmable with machinery, because some of them are like that.
I know, it is amazing to see. And also the cows up there.
Yeah, mountain cows.
Mountain cows.
So Albania does have an earthquake risk. Most people don't probably know that. It's minimal. They don't have them very often, and when they do, they're not very intense. So just know that you might feel a tremor while you were there.
Well, they do not have any volcanoes. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to live in a country with volcanoes, then Albania is your place.
Yeah. All right. Albania clearly wins this one since there are no minimal earthquakes and no volcanoes.
We didn't experience any earthquake swarms when we were there.
No. All right, the next factor is expat friendly. Like how easy is it for an expat to move there and settle in? And again, Ecuador wins this one, I think, hands down,
I
at
would
least
agree.
for now. Albania is getting better.
Yes. Well, just because Ecuador has been popular for a long time, and Albania is still pretty new to the whole expat game.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, there's long established expat communities in Ecuador. It's easy integration, especially for retirees. I say Cuenca is like a cruise ship. The food is great, and there's tons of things to do every day to keep you busy. I call it cruise ship Cuenca for that reason.
Yep.
They don't have any place like that in Albania yet.
No, it's definitely growing, but you're going to have more Europeans in Albania. We have more Americans and Canadians in Ecuador, although that is changing. And we're starting to see more younger people with families and more digital nomads coming in too, thanks to the whole remote work situation.
Yeah, but Ecuador, I think, as of right now, in 2026, Ecuador wins the expat-friendly comparison.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%.
All right, the next one is how common is English? And I know a lot of people want to move to a country and speak the local language, but it's a lot harder to learn than you think when you're over 40 or 50 or 60. We're
Agreed.
functional in Spanish. After years of living there, we're functional but not fluent. And it depends on what area you go. They speak differently. Even in a tiny country like Ecuador, the coast has a different accent that's harder to understand compared to the mountains. Quito is different than Cuenca, which is different than Loja. So, I mean, if people say, oh, you should just learn the language. Well, which language should we learn?
Yeah.
And then we went to Spain and we were hit
gosh.
by a buzzsaw. It's completely different, especially in Andalusia.
Spain is difficult, but we're not talking about Spain.
I know. So anyway, I would say English in Albania is actually easier because they don't expect you to learn Albanian. It's a very rare language, only spoken by a few million people. We were trying to learn a couple words like hello and goodbye and please and thank you. And we were talking to her stylist about it. And she said, well, how long are you guys staying here? And we said, I don't know, a few months. She's like, why are you wasting your time learning our language? Nobody expects you to learn our language.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious, but it's true. The older people aren't going to speak English most likely, but the younger people do.
Yeah.
I agree with you, JP. It is easier in Albania to communicate than in Ecuador, where a lot of people outside of Cuenca do not speak English.
Yeah.
And again, it's the younger people that are learning to speak English really around the world.
Yeah. So it's easy. Ecuador's not as easy, unfortunately. It's one of the worst in Latin America, too. It ranks consistently at the bottom for English proficiency. So I would say English is easier in Albania. Plus, there are expats there, mostly European, and all the Europeans speak English.
They do.
If they come from Germany or anywhere else, they speak English.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing. All right, another livability factor is how close it is to the USA and Canada in case you want to get back to see your friends and family back home.
Well, I think this one is obvious, unless you are not familiar where Albania and Ecuador are, but Ecuador is closer than Albania.
Yeah.
And there are direct flights from Quito and Guayaquil to the United States.
Several.
Yes.
And it's in the same time zone.
Yes.
As the U.S. Albania, there's no direct flights. They're talking about adding one to JFK, but that's dependent on the runway situation in Tirana, which we're not completely convinced is actually done. They need to make it longer for the bigger planes to land there.
It'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
That does seem like a big, that they are pushing. They have been doing a lot of work to the Tirana airport. We noticed a lot of improvements since the last time we were there.
Yeah, so a lot of people, if they're going to go to the U.S., fly through Frankfurt, Paris, London. Those are kind of the stepping stones to get back to the U.S. So I would say Ecuador wins this one because it's really, you can be back in the U.S. the same day.
Agreed.
Like from Quito, it's a 4.5-hour flight to Miami. So you can be back in quickly.
Yes.
All right, so before we talk about the winner and the loser overall, let's talk about the visa options. This isn't a livability factor, but it is important if you want to live there.
It is, because if you don't qualify for a visa, then you're basically just going on the tourist visa. So maybe we should talk about that first.
Yeah.
Albania is the clear winner if you have a U.S. passport because they offer a visa-free 1-year tourist visa for people with U.S. passports.
Well, visa-free, not a tourist visa.
It's not a residency visa.
Correct.
However, and for Ecuador, you get 90 days, which you can extend for another 90. So you can get a total of 6 months. But they also have very similar residency options. So if you decide you go to Albania and you say, you know what, I want to stay a lot longer, which people do, you can apply for a variety of different visas while you're there. You can apply for a retirement visa. They have a digital nomad visa. You can do real estate. And I'm forgetting
Which one?
Which one? Albania. Oh,
The investor?
the investor visa. I knew I was forgetting one.
Well, that's real estate.
Yes, real estate or investor. You can also open a business. So there's a variety of ways you can go. And they're pretty easy to get. Ecuador is not as easy to get visas, but you can get them with no problem. People move there all the time. There's just more paperwork and bureaucracy that goes along with the whole visa process. And they have a retirement visa, a rentista visa, a digital nomad visa, an investor visa, and they also have a professional visa, which is really unique to Ecuador. We haven't come across anything that is similar to this. So if you have a degree from an accredited university, a bachelor's or higher, you can get that.
You can use that to qualify for your visa.
And qualify for your visa. You also have to show monthly income and other things like that. But it's a longer process to get that visa, but it's actually a really good one to get. And for people who aren't retired, that is another really good option.
Yeah, it is. That's what we used. The time that was really the only visa we qualified for.
Right.
That's another reason why we chose Ecuador in the beginning, because they wanted us. They wanted people like us.
We could have done the investor visa because that actually the investment is low, but we just didn't want to go that route.
Yeah, at the time we just weren't sure about transferring that much money. It was $32,000 at the time.
Yeah, now I think it's closer to $50,000.
Close to 50 now. But. All right, so we are in the process of scheduling some webinars to interview visa agents from Ecuador, Albania, Spain, and some other countries. So if you sign up for our World Aware newsletter, you're going to get notified when we announce those webinars so that you can tune in and ask your questions and get some answers from the experts who actually know more than we do.
Yeah, we'll do much more in-depth, deep dive into the specifics about the visas, the popular visas, as opposed to my quick overview.
All right, so now for the winner of our comparison, and Ecuador comes out on top with 6. Albania has 3, and they tied on 2. They tied on the tax-friendly and the walkability and public transport.
I agree with that. I feel like they're very similar. Every time we go to Albania, we think, gosh, this kind of reminds us of Ecuador.
Yeah.
I think that if you really want to live in Europe, Albania is an incredibly affordable and easy option because they're not part of the Schengen zone, so that could be a pro or a con, but you can use that as your Schengen shuffle strategy, so you can stay there and then you can go visit your other European countries and then go back home to Albania. The downside, of course, is that it's farther from the U.S. and it is a little bit more expensive, but it's not. 32% sounds like a lot, but it really isn't that big of a difference compared to prices in the U.S. or some of the other really expensive countries around the world, like Australia, for example.
And we keep going. Take a breath, Amelia. Okay, so I would say that Ecuador is better for retirees, better for healthcare. It does have an overall lower cost of living. It's an easier transition if you've never lived abroad before. I feel like it's easier to go there, especially Cuenca. That's where we recommend. It's Cuenca.
Cuenca for sure.
Yeah, I would say that Albania, it's safer.
It is safer.
And the Europe access. Those are the 2 main draws for Albania. I
do think that it's a younger crowd moving to Albania currently. We're starting to see more retirees, but I agree with you, JP. I think if you're looking to retire, Ecuador is a really great choice.
Yeah. All right, so let us know what you guys think in the comments. Are either of these countries on your list? Are they off your list now? Are they now on your list and they weren't before? Let us know in the comments what you guys think. And also remember to grab that free Move Abroad Toolkit at ameliaandjp.com/toolkit.
All right, I think that's all we have for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. And
leave us a like.
Leave us a like,
before you go. It helps the channel.
It does.
We'll see you all next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.